What's up, Scoop Podcast? I'm your host, Erica Kruppen, and on today's episode, I had an interview, or I have an interview. When you're listening to this, it will be an interview, but I recorded it like an hour or two ago. But I got so excited that I hopped right into just like the whole question thing and interview. And the first part of it, we were actually talking about how we scoop dog poop in the snow. Because today we got a lot of snow. So she asked me the question while we were still like not recording. And I was like, hold on a second. Let me record because this is a question I get asked often. So we talked about that and then we hopped right into the interview. I absolutely love following Christine online. She she's online, it's like she's everything that I want. She's powerful, she's beautiful, she's organized. She's organized. And I am not. I'm organized to a certain extent. You know, some people might look at me and be like, whoa, she's really got it together. I feel like I'm not. I don't have it together. I look at her and she's like, she has it together. And then she probably looks at somebody else and they're like, that person really has it together. So I think a lot of times we are looking at other people and we're, wanting to be like them. They inspire us. Even though that's all great, we still need to appreciate what we've done and how far we have come. But having said that, I really enjoyed this interview. I could have stayed chatting with her for way longer, but I wanted to be respectful of her time. We talk about like processes in the business. And I think it's a really good topic because at a certain point, when you want to start to grow, you want to start to hire, things start changing, you need to put some type of policies and procedures and processes in place so everybody knows what's going on, right? So things aren't changing all the time. And I didn't really have a good flow with any of this stuff until I hired a VA and they were asking me all these questions. They're like, "Well, how do you do this?" I'm like, "I don't know, I just do it." And I had to like break it down and figure it out and then stick to it, right? Unless we're going to change it, but it made it to where things just run more smooth. So we dive into that. And this is a really, really good episode. I'm actually super stoked about it. I don't usually listen to a lot of my episodes just because I cringe at myself. But I plan on listening to this episode again because I really want to absorb the information that she was saying. So if you are listening to this when you're out and about, I would suggest listening to it again. Get a pen and paper out, jot down some notes, and take inspiration from it. So I won't keep you too much longer. Let's get into the episode. How they find the poop in the snow when it snows out is we can visually see like where the doggy prints go. So like that leads us to the piles.
Duh.
So there's that. That's like the fresh stuff. And then also like while we're walking, like we kind of put our feet out like this. So we're kind of shimmying our feet. And if it feels like a rock under our foot, it's a poop pile because it's frozen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then we scoop that up. And then we're also paying attention to our path in front of us, but we're kind of eyeballing the path that we just did to
Uh-huh.
see if we missed anything.
Okay.
Um, so we get what we can scoop, but we can't see everything. And then when the snow melts, that's when we spend like more time in the yard. We get it caught back up and we just have a conversation with the customer and say, hey, listen, you stay on with us through the winter. We're going to do everything we can to get the piles. When the melt happens, you are the priority. We have so many people coming in trying to get on our schedule. We take care of you first before we take on anybody new.
Wow.
Yeah. And
This is
that's
cool.
yeah, that's usually how it works. So that's how we scoop in the winter.
Love it.
I am super excited to have you on the Scoop podcast. I have been following you on social media for quite some time. And then when I seen you at, I believe it was a huge convention, I seen you from a distance and I was like, I got to say hi. I have to go and say hi to Christy. And so welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super interested in everything that you do and everything that you post and everything that you talk about. So I feel like we're really aligned, even
Yeah.
though we're in different industries.
Right. And you are big on processes. And so this is something like I want to hear your story. I want to find out like how you got into business and then what got you to the point where you're the process. Like you're the process person. This is what you do. And I'm so disorganized all the time and I need processes in my life.
I love processes. So, um, okay, so basically, my background is in legal. I was a patent litigation paralegal for a majority of my career in pharmaceuticals. And I was very process driven. So, while I should have been doing things towards the litigation, I was always trying to figure out a way to streamline the work that our attorneys in the US were doing with what our attorneys were doing in other countries and in Canada and in Colorado and things like that. So I was always really interested in like if something is broken, how can I fix it? And it's just that's my personality and I'm very passionate about that because when I succeed it makes me feel really good when I fix something that's broken. So anyway, one time a lawyer came up to me and was like, "Do you want to be a paralegal or do you want to go or do you want to be in IT?" Because I was like developing a database. And I was like, "Well, I'm fixing something that's broken. So let me do my job." Long story short, I met Freddie. He owned Clearview Washing, exterior cleaning. And I wanted to quit my job as a paralegal to stay home with our daughter when she was born. And he said, "Do it. Just quit, be a stay at home mom, take care of the baby, whatever." I did. I ended up quitting. And organically, when he would come home with process issues, I was really intrigued. Like I wanted to fix it. And it was a family business. So his mom's on board, his dad's on board, his brother was on board at that time. So it's like I wanted to work really hard to help him because it was our income, our only income at that time. And that's how I became the process CEO. I became the CEO of his company. I developed a whole bunch of processes. It allows him to work on lead generation and marketing and sales. And I can do the behind the scenes, we're having a consistent issue with our field crew. Christine, what's a good process we can implement? I write it and I implement it. We're having an issue with keeping up with the phone calls in the office. I write a process and I implement it. And that's my thing. And I love doing it.
So I hear this question all the time, especially with a lot of the men. They're like, "How do I get my wife more involved in the business?" So it sounds like he didn't actually ask you. You were just like you seen a problem and you wanted to get in there. And so, what would you say to the guys that are like, "I want my wife to help in the business, but she doesn't want to." Like, do you have any uh, like words of encouragement or advice on that?
Yeah, that's tough because if she doesn't want to, she shouldn't.
Right.
Um, you can't force something. And another thing is we're really clear. Like Freddie and I work so well together that like even if there's like conflict from a like on a personal dynamic, it's like we will still go to work and be so extremely aligned because we're so much on the same page. So we're really clear about like this is my job, what I handle, my responsibility. I don't need your permission. This is my lane. You're going to stay in yours and vice versa. These are his thing. He's the marketing guy. He's the lead generation guy. He can ask for my advice or input, but that's his thing. I stay out of it. And we fully trust and respect each other's roles. And I think that's why we've been successful in that. Because a lot of couples have asked me, like, especially at the huge convention, a lot of couples come together and they're like, we're bumping heads or we're doing this. And I'm like, because you're probably both trying to do the same thing. Because you have to remember, originally, that business was his. So he's used to wearing all the hats. He has to be able to give up full control of whatever you're going to be doing and fully trust you. And then you have to respect that this is your role and he's going to do that. And uh, something that's like a little like controversial, but like it's real, is like I do consider Freddie my boss. Like he's the president and co-founder of this company, and I work under him, and I am the CEO, and I report directly to him, and I respect that infrastructure. And I think that they have to make sure that they understand that and they respect it.
No, I love that because when I was doing this business, I thought, I'm like, okay, well, my husband can come in and we can like kind of do this together and we can like figure it out. And then I'm like, all right, what can you do in this business? And he was just like, I'll tell you what this man told me. I'm like, ideally, what would you like to do? He's like, I would like to go around and make sure everybody's doing a good job and they're happy and like bring them donuts. And I said, "What?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "No, no, that's not gonna work." And so I just realized right then and there, I'm like, then we're not gonna have that dynamic where it's like husband and wife working in this business. And I had to come to terms with that. Like I was upset with him, I was upset with myself. And because I'm like, we're both trying to do different things. I'm like, if we put our heads together, because I noticed that a lot of the companies that are doing very well and are very successful, they're partners. Either it's a husband and wife that work well together, or two people came together that have opposite skill sets. And I'm like, man, if I could just, it was just that thing. And I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. So I appreciate you being transparent and honest because a lot of people need to have that honest conversation with themselves and then also with their spouse because if you're forcing your spouse into something that they're not happy with, I'm sure that causes a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, it could ruin a marriage. Like you have to make sure that you're on the same page and have uncomfortable upfront, even like conversations about money. Like you have to talk about it up front and say like, what are our goals as a couple with this business, and what is my pay going to be? Another big thing that I tell people is it's so crazy to me that the wives always go in when it's the husband's business as office manager. It's like if I were to ask like every wife at the huge convention, what's your role? She's like office manager. And it's like, well, what do you do? I answer phones, I handle all of the accounting, I write all of our processes, I do all the hiring. And I'm like, so you're not an office manager. Like, why are you not give yourself a title that makes you feel like you're your husband's partner? Like I feel like I'm a badass CEO. Like that's because I am. Like I'm really contributing to the growth of the business and our personal goals as a family. So I'm not just an office manager. I'm like, you're not just an office manager. Give yourself a real title. And that's like that too, like can just help boost the morale, like as a couple. Like now you're like partners, you know?
So there's two questions I have there. So can you define a CEO? What is a CEO and what do they do within a company?
My role as CEO and what I would define it as is it's like chief executive operations, I think, or something like that. I feel like that's what I am. So I do handle all operations. And I think it's because I'm writing and developing all of the processes and then pushing them down to our department heads to implement. So when I became CEO, we hired a field ops manager to manage the field crew. We hired a sales manager to handle sales. Um, and then we have like basically like an office manager. It's my husband's mom, and then the office team beneath her. So I oversee every department operationally and financially. And then I kind of like figure out what's broken, figure out how things need to be done. It's all on a beautiful org chart. And then I just like push it down to my departments once a week. We have weekly meetings.
Oh, you're blowing my mind, girl. Okay, you said org chart. A lot of people listening might not know what an org chart is. What is that?
It's a visualization of who reports to who in the company and like the hierarchy. So I have my husband at the top, and then it shows that like I report into him, and then the department heads report into me, and then who reports into the department heads. And it's not anything fancy. I did it in like Microsoft PowerPoint. Like I put boxes and text blocks and lines, and that's how I created my org chart. But it's also helpful everything that we do is like all we're visualizing is how can we scale. We have to do this in a way that we can scale it. So as we hire more and more people, how do you scale? Well, I can't have field crew calling me with issues on the job. So like I have field crew members reporting directly to their team leads. The team leads report directly to the field ops manager. There's one field ops manager, and then field ops reports directly to me. So I shouldn't get a call first, but they can contact me if they can't reach their team lead or field ops. So we also did this. And then again, like I like to fix what's broken, right? Well, what was broken 3 years ago is we were running around like chickens with our heads cut off because like I would get a call from the field and then Freddie would get a call from the field and then his mom would get a call from the field and then we all start working on the same thing and everyone's in panic. And it's like you only needed to call one person, let them know, and then come up with a solution. So when everyone in home services, you're not all in like a little store together. So everyone's remote. So we created the hierarchy, the org chart also as a guide of like, this is who you call first, basically. And that's really helped us stay organized.
Oh yeah, because when you're talking too, for the people that aren't watching this on YouTube, when you were talking about like your processes and like the org chart, I could see you close your eyes and you were using your hands, so I could see that you were visualizing it like in your brain. Are you a visual person? Like, does that help you with all of this and organizing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
To be able to see it is like to be able to understand it for me.
okay. Because I do want to dive into like the processy part, but can you just kind of give the listeners an idea of like how large is it's a soft wash business, right? Power washing, soft wash.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all exterior cleaning.
Okay. How large is the business?
We have 28 employees at the height of the season.
Woo.
Yeah, it's a nice size. We had 8 trucks. We just had to put one down because it was dying on us. So now we're down to 7 trucks.
RIP.
I know, we were so sad. I loved that one. But we kind of like alternate years in investing to make sure that we have a safe P&L. Like we never want to go into the negatives. So like this year was an investment year. We added trucks to the fleet, and then like the upcoming year, we're gonna like make sure that we're riding smoothly and protecting our net profits. And then the following year, we'll add a few more, and like that's how we grow. We kind of like reinvest into the business every other year.
Oh, okay. That's smart. Because I was in an investment year this year, and I was like looking at my profit, and I was like, what profit? It's all been
Yeah,
reinvested. Like, what's even happening right now?
yeah, yeah.
So
It's like to understand that like is like, but you're like, okay, but I know that I just gave back to my business.
hmm yeah, if it's whatever, like I decided that I wanted to have newer vehicles and newer branding, and you've seen all the hot pink stuff, like really go all in on that.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm kind of curious though, a lot of business owners, I feel like a lot of business owners, we get in business, we're just running the show. We're like one man, one guy. Maybe we have a couple people that work with us. And so we are the owner, we are the CEO, we are the accountant, we're all of that. And we're just trying to figure out, like we're at that point for our business, let's say 250,000. That's the point where a lot of us get stuck because we can't go any further with what we know without growing and with just us. So when somebody's like, okay, they come to you and they're like, I need help. I have nothing. Like everything's in my brain. I sometimes do my accounting this way and I sometimes do it this way, but there's no process. Like, where do
Mhm.
you start with those people when you're doing like coaching or training?
My first thing would be, what is the biggest roadblock? So are you getting so many leads but you can't keep up with the phone calls, or can you keep up with the phone calls, you're getting so many leads but you don't have enough people to put out into the field to get the job done? Where is the one roadblock? And then we're going to start there. Usually, and I know it's not across the board, but usually owner operator, their first thing is, I can't do the work out in the field and take the phone calls and get back to everybody. especially at the height of the season. And I always say then start with an admin or a VA. And then that kind of, then you and that person get organized, write your process for how do I have an admin? How do I take phone calls? What scripts do I want to like just start there? And then it's like baby steps, because when you're a business owner, like what you said, you're wearing like all of these hats and you're like, I have to do everything right now. I need a CRM for this, I need this, I need quoting, I need reviews, and it's like, well, yeah, you do need all of those things, but you don't need it right now.
No.
Clearview's years in and we're just figuring things out.
And I think a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially with social media. We see everybody, it's like the highlight reel, and you feel like you have to know everything. And I kind of compare it to this going back to when I was a teenager and going to the grocery store and seeing the magazine covers that's like, get abs, get a flat stomach in 2 weeks. Like, we think that with our business, like, we should be able to just write a whole employee handbook in like a couple hours. Like, it's not that big of a deal, but when you really dive into it, you're like, "Wait a minute, I no wonder I'm exhausted. There's so much that I'm doing." And so I'm actually in the process of this right now. You're probably going to you promise me you won't hang up on me when I tell you this? You got to promise. I have gotten 38 leads in and I've closed none of them because I don't have a sales process.
No.
I don't have a follow-up sales process, and I guess I just didn't even realize it.
Right.
And
Right.
so
And that's right now your pain point.
it's a super pain point because here's the thing is my leads and everything would come in just organic. I never paid for anything. So I wasn't really like paying attention, but now that I'm running ads and I'm actually paying for these leads and my ads manager is like on top of me. He was like, "How many have you closed?" I was like, I don't know." So he pulled the data and he showed me all of it. I was like 38 and he was like, "Did you close any?" I'm like, "No." And he was like, "Well, what like, what's going on?" I'm like, "I don't have a sales process. I don't follow up with anybody." Um
Right.
I know, and so it's super frustrating, and as we go in business, sometimes, like, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but it's good to just be honest and let the listeners know that even you, like, looking at you online, I think you have it all together, and you feel like you're just getting started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually great that you identified a problem, because look at how successful you are already. And now you identified a pain point. Like, look at it from the other angle. You're this successful already in what you're doing. You've developed an entire brand. You're grossing that much already.
Mm.
And imagine what's going to happen now that you've identified that pain point and write your sales process. Imagine what that's going to do to you.
Yeah. Oh, I think about it, I'm like, "Woo, we're gonna do big things over here. We're gonna have 5 hot pink fleet vehicles out there eventually. That'd be great if they could
Exactly.
quit getting into accidents."
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
Okay. So, writing a process, it's overwhelming when you have to actually stop, think about it. You're like, what do I actually do? What's some
Mhm.
tactical advice you could give somebody wanting to start on a process? Dreaming of starting your own holiday lighting business? Bright Factory has you covered. Introducing the ultimate holiday lighting business in a box. Get ready to light up your community with everything you need to succeed. A complete brand identity, a sleek website, and fully wrapped trailer jam packed with supplies and equipment. We're talking top notch uniforms, eye catching marketing material, and world class training. Plus, custom videos for your team to ensure they're ready to shine from day one. Ready to turn your holiday lighting dreams into a reality? Visit brightfactory.com today and let Bright Factory light the way to your success.
I would write it down as bullet points. Like, what do you want to achieve? And then how do you manipulate all of those bullet points into an order to achieve them? So we did an office exercise like 2 or 3 years ago where I just had an empty whiteboard and post-its. And we wrote down everybody, like it was just a thing of everyone got post-its, and it's like write down what you do, one thing per post-it. And then we put them up on the board, and then we just lifted the post-it and put it under certain people. So it's like, oh, answering phone calls, that's going to go here. Oh, getting back to Google Leads, that's going to go here. Again, as a visualization for everyone to understand, these are all of the responsibilities in whole. In what order should we tackle them, and with whom should they be tackled by?
Oh, I love that with a visual because it's really hard if especially if you're not a person like me, the thought of an Excel spreadsheet, getting into a Google Doc because I'm like ADHD and dyslexic, once like it makes no sense to me. I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on? So I love this idea with the colors too.
Yeah, it's a great way to visualize it, and then you can take that and input it onto a pretty Canva template if you want. You can put it in a Word document into columns with bullet points. You can make it look, I think, like, a lot of people think that it has to be complex and you need a software for everything, and it's like you can make it, it's just like the org chart. You can make it really simple and visually appealing where people understand it. And even if you're small, starting with a process, even if it's just you, like, that helps you, because then when you bring someone on, you already have a base point to hand them and say, like, this is how far I've gotten on my own. Can you help me make this better? Like, I have two VAs now, and they're like a dream team. Like, I don't even know how we worked without them. And initially, it was just to answer phones and schedule leads and schedule jobs, and it's evolving into so much more. Like, they'll identify something that's broken and be like, I feel like we should do this, and I'm like, write it. You write it. Why don't you develop a process for it, and let's talk about it together and see if everyone aligns on it. So it's pretty cool.
That's a really good idea because I have a VA and I'm bringing on another one for social media.
Oh, that's fun.
I need some help. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, I have to like write all these processes. I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, that'd be really cool if I brought them in. I'm like, hey, build this process out for me. Figure it out and present it to me, and I'll let you know if it works.
That's actually, it's interesting you say that, because we even, like, when you're like a business owner and it's smaller, and then you're like, you're already used to doing everything, so you think you need to hire people and like micromanage them and tell them how to do things. And we have just over the last 12 months have gotten to a point where we're like, we do not have to hire people and tell them how to do things. We need to hire people who know things, and they can tell us how to do things. And that's what we're doing. Like, that's what we're doing with our sales team. That's what we did with these VAs. Like, we're hiring people who know more than what we've developed. And we're like, this is where we've gotten so far. You make it better. I don't have to micromanage you. And that's I think that contributes to a lot of our growth.
Yeah, I think the micromanaging it when we want to control everything, everything stops and ends with us because people are afraid to do stuff without you. Luckily, I have given like the freedom for my like scoopers over the years. I'm like, here's the guidelines. Just roll with it. Please don't make me the bottleneck all the time because I do have other things that I'm trying to work on. And I like it. And if there's any issues, they document it in Jobber because, I have the CRM. So I'm able to see everything that's going on and I get the little notification up at the top if there was
Mhm.
any issues. And so then I can circle back. I don't have to stop my meeting immediately. Right. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
now I can check my notifications, what's going on. And then I can circle back, check in, and see if there's any support that I can offer.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. You use Jabber as well, right?
Yes, we are huge Jobber fans.
How long ago did you implement Jabber into your business?
It was 7 years ago. It was the first thing I ever did for my husband's business. He gave me a list of like 7 or 8 CRMs, and I did little demos with each of them. And then
Yeah.
I went back to him and I had circled Jobber on the piece of paper, and I was like, Jobber's the most user friendly.
Yeah, I thought so too. I used a few of them, did the trials, checked them out, and then I landed on that. And I remember, so at that point, you would have thought that Jabber was the hardest thing in my life because I didn't understand technology. You know how
Mhm.
I was doing my jobs? I had blank paper and I would draw a line down the middle and I would make little boxes. So I would have 6 boxes on each piece of paper and I would write the person's first and last name, their phone
Uh-huh.
number or email address, how many dogs, and what I was charging them. And that is how still have the notebook. If that's how I
Oh,
was running my business until eventually I was starting to like miss people's houses or go to the wrong house, or I'd be laying there and I'm like, wait, did I move them? Like, did I do them today? And I would catch myself getting out of bed. So I started doing the research, and it was a learning curve for me because I didn't really understand technology. I don't know how I would run my business without Jobber now.
absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
makes it
It's so,
so
it is. It just, you feel so organized and everything's in one place under one client profile. Like, I don't know how Freddie did. I guess he was at like 14 years in business then. And I'm like, or 13 years. I'm like, how did you go 13 years with like writing everything down?
guys do that. I don't understand. It's like the napkin, the
Yeah.
whatever they're writing it on, and then they're like collecting all of their stuff. I
Uh-huh.
remember seeing my husband, he had to go file his taxes, and I was like, "All right, well, let's do the taxes." He literally, when I tell you he was the shoebox guy, I couldn't believe
Uh-huh.
it. I said, "What? Like, what is this?" And he had all these like notes and all of this stuff. I'm like, "Your accounting bill is going to be outrageous. You're gonna have to pay so much money because of it."
Oh,
But
that's funny.
because of that, like, he's learned a lot, and when he restarted his, the tree service, that was one of the first things he did is he instantly got Jobber, and he was like, "Ah, I feel so professional."
Oh, that's great. I was going to ask you, what did he do after not joining your company?
He still does tree work. So my husband is a tree guy,
Okay.
and he's worked for various like tree services. You know, that's kind of what you do as a climber. You work for one company. When they don't want to give you a raise, you go to another company and you kind of just bebop around.
Uh-huh.
And so he's working with his brothers, and working with family, if there aren't boundaries and it's not healthy, can be really, really, really tough. I mean, you have your really good moments, but then you have your really tough moments. So he was like, and that's why I was kind of like, well, if things are kind of tough over there, you can come over here and we can kind of figure that out. But like what my business makes versus what he makes as a climber, like I can't pay him that. You know, he doesn't have the skill set in my business to be able to make what he makes as a climber. So he was like, "Well, I'm going to start my own." So he started his own tree service. And so he does that on the side while he still works with his brothers. And he's just trying to he's still trying to figure it out. But I like the fact that he's doing his tree service like part time, and he's like getting in the reps, like he's learning things, right? On the business side of it. Cause doing the work, like he could do the work with his eyes closed. He's been doing this since he was like 18 or 19, something crazy.
Wow.
Right? So it's
Uh-huh.
it's the business side of it that he's like, I don't know," but that I think to anybody that's listening that's kinda like, "I'm thinking about becoming a business owner. I work at a place." You really have to think about this. When you're working for somebody, it's much different than when you are running a business. Like, the mind shift change. You have to go all in. You have to make tough decisions. And you have to really be okay with always being on and not really, I guess, having like maybe peace. I don't know what it is, but like my husband, he'd come home, shut it off.
Yep.
Not a care in the world. Me, I'm like, I can't do it. Like there's so much opportunity to go get.
Yep. Absolutely. It's yours. Like, it's yours. Like, the more you work, the more you get, you
Yeah.
know? So different, but it's
Yeah.
also so rewarding.
It is. It is. So okay, so we talked about implementing some processes and like where to start. Now you got the process, you have it figured out, you're like, "All right, I'm doing this." Then
Mhm.
you don't do it. You don't implement it. What do you say to that person that is struggling to implement the process?
So, implementing it for yourself is like, I feel like that's a little easier. Like, if something's broken, you're the owner, you're like, I should do it this way, you usually will. Implementing something amongst an employee or a team is very challenging, and it could take a year or two. So, like, when we first started using Jobber's clock in and clock out feature, it took like a year and a half before everybody was clocking in and out. everyone's frustrated and they're like, oh, I didn't get paid for Thursday. And we're like, well, you didn't clock in on Thursday. Like, you needed to clock in. And there's a learning curve behind it. And it's just consistent weekly meetings, bonus deductions, just you have to find, like, if someone's motivated by money, you can get them to do something by doing a bonus deduction, or like we would deduct $5 if they forgot to clock in and we had to manually do it for them. So there are like little things, but implementation, in my opinion, is harder than writing the process. Like, it's like you could write it on paper, but to get everyone to do it is like, I remember when we first got Responsibid, our sales team was like mad at us. They're like, what do you mean we have to use Responsibid and Jobber? And like, we're like, this is meant to make things easier. Like, and then there's the follow-up sequence, and like there's so much good that comes with it. And then you pair that with Jobber and it's like magic. And they were so mad, and it took like a year and a half. Probably it's always like a year and a half where it's like inconsistency. We had to try and get 4 people to buy into it, and once they bought in, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I did soft washing quotes without putting the square footage of the home in. Like, now it's like second nature. So how is it going with Responsibid, Erica? I've been dying to ask.
Ooh, girl, it's been tough for me. So this was my fourth time. My 4th time trying it out. And finally, my buddy John Noonan held me accountable, because I reached out to him and I told him, I was like, I really want to do this, but like I keep dropping the ball. So he was like, all right, this is your launch day. You have to be launched by like December 1st. I got into it and I was telling my VA, and she was not pleased. Like, she was, because she's worked with it before. She doesn't love it, but it was just something that we needed to do. And so it's going to take some time. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't quite fully understand it yet, but I
Uh-huh.
will say this is something I kind of want to talk to you about, because you're an online personality too, right? Because you're all over the place. I'm getting a lot of people wanting to figure out what my prices are. So they're submitting like bogus leads and bogus quotes. So I'm struggling, like going through and filtering this stuff out. And I was getting really, really upset, because not only am I trying to learn a new software, which, thank you for letting me know that it takes a while. It shouldn't click right away. I don't have a streamlined follow-up process for my sales. And then now I'm going through all of these bogus quotes of these folks that are trying to figure out what my pricing is to implement in their business. And I'm like, what do I do?
That's terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't
does that happen to you?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I can't imagine that it doesn't. So I don't know. Maybe it does, and I'm just not catching it because the VAs are handling it.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't realize that that would be something that you'd be struggling with.
I didn't either. And so, any of you guys that are listening right now, if you're putting bogus quotes in, I'm going to block your IP address. I learned how to do that. You will be blocked.
Great.
Just I'm just gonna put that one out there.
How do you find out that they're fake?
Well, because it comes in for like the same name, like on repeat. And then also, like, you can click on it and you can go in to see the IP address, and you can compare the IP addresses if they use a different name, a different
Oh,
email address, a different phone number.
oh my
I
gosh.
know. And so I'm like, I got to figure this out, because I don't even have a good process right now. And um,
Right,
so I will say, where I'm at with Responsibid, I know that there is so much value. I'm just not there yet, but we're
right.
gonna get there.
You'll get there. That's
Yeah.
okay. I was intimidated by it. Freddie got Responsibid. He won Responsibid at an expo, and he got the free trial, and the free trial started and ended. They were doing free trials back then, and I was like, I'm way too intimidated. Then I did the setup, and I would never launch it. I'd like kept setting it up and kept fixing things, and I would never start using it. And Freddie was like, we're going to start using it on Monday. Like, it's like the yin and yang effect with me and him working together. I want everything to be perfect, and he wants it to get done. So like, I work really hard to perfect it. And he's like, all right, Christine, today's the day. And that's how it gets done. So like, it helps us out. But that's what happened with Responsibid. And then once we released it out into the wild, and then the sales team started using it. That's how we like fixed and tweaked, but we had to just start using it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about follow-ups because I mean, this is a pain point with me right now, and I think it is a pain point for a lot of scoopers that don't have a sales team. They don't have
Mhm.
a process. They're super busy. They're like, oh, the person didn't accept the quote. I don't have time to follow up. For somebody that is just wanting to implement just a simple follow-up process, like, what do you think that should look like just from the get-go?
I think that it should be a combination of emails, phone calls, and text messages. So we always say we try and speak every client's love language. You have clients that are a little older that want an old school phone call. They don't deal with text messages and emails. You have clients that get hate getting text messages from companies, and they're just like, I just send it in an email and I'll work on it when I can work on it. And then vice versa. You have people who never check their emails and don't answer their phone calls. They don't even check their voicemails, but if you text them, they'll get right back to you. So we incorporate all three into our follow up sequence. It's like an email follow up. And then, like, the next day, they'll get a text message. And then, like, 3 days later, they'll get a phone call from a rep, or I have it all integrated. I know this isn't even about ResponsiBid, but what's pretty cool is like you can set a part of your follow up sequence could be an email to the sales rep who sent it out. So like you can like have an email sent to yourself saying call this client to make sure they got the estimate. So that's pretty cool because you can incorporate that into your follow up sequence. But even if someone declines an estimate, we contact them every few months for 12 years. So I built out the follow up sequence to go out like where you're never going to stop hearing from us unless you literally hit unsubscribe.
So yeah, for any of those of you that are listening and you're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm bothering the customer." Keep
No,
going until they unsubscribe.
yeah, like your business is not at the forefront of their brain. Like it's like we would get like so offended if like someone wasn't getting back to us, and it's like 20 years later we're like their power washing is not the number one thing that someone's like I have to get this done. It's really like a luxury, window washing is a luxury, chandelier cleaning is a luxury. So we have to keep reminding them that we're here because their lives are chaotic as it is. And so we always follow up. When a job closes, there's a follow up sequence for that we're going to reach out to them in about 4 months and say, like, hey, I know you recently had a gutter cleaning. And, I think that it's time for us to come out again. So there's a whole lot that you can do strategically. Having a software helps with that. But if not, there are like those like campaigns that you can put together, I think in MailChimp and in what's that monkey one? Oh wait, that's the MailChimp. Constant Contact.
Oh yeah.
You can like put together like your own follow-up sequence if you wanted to.
Well, and Jobber has some follow-ups too where you can customize. I like that.
Yep,
And then
absolutely.
the marketing thing that they have now where you can send out campaigns, that's
That's
huge.
amazing.
I think I got 16 jobs off of a refer a friend campaign that I sent out back in October.
That's incredible. It's so nice to be able to filter it by like we used the re-engage list and we sent it to people who we haven't serviced in like a year or two. It's just really nice to be able to filter and send on the same platform.
What would you say the importance of reaching out to your past customers? Would you put a lot of effort into that instead of trying to get new ones?
Yes. So a lot of people that we've coached are like, I need new leads, I need new leads, I need new leads. And we're like, yes, you absolutely do. You need to keep lead generation coming. But you also have a client list of like 5,000 people, even people who inquired, even if they weren't interested at that time, they might be interested now. They might have gotten a promotion and they're like, now I can afford this service. You just never know people's situations. So you can't stop contacting people. You can't like stop remarketing to your own list until they actually say stop. You
Yeah.
should keep on remarketing. You could even proactively, like we proactively send gutter cleaning quotes to all the clients in our system every fall because we're like, everyone needs a gutter cleaning at some point. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing it. So even without them asking, I have our reps just pumping out gutter cleaning plans.
That's really smart, especially like in my industry. So, say for instance, we have a customer that comes and gets like a one time clean during spring. We already know what their yard size is because we track all that data in Jobber. We already see that every time they come to us, it's the same. Yeah, we could proactively send out a quote and say, hey, listen, we have some openings coming up. You want to come on
Yeah.
schedule? That's a great idea.
There's a laundry service, and I used it in the summer. I was really tied up this summer with family stuff, and I wasn't doing laundry. And I got this service where you put all of our laundry in bags on our front porch, and they pick it up and they take it, they wash it, and they bring it back the next day. And I was like, oh my God, this is genius. And it was affordable. And I did it. And till now, I still, when they are in our area, I think it's Mondays and Thursdays, though the day before, I get a text message and an email saying, we're going to be in your area. Do you need a pickup? And if I haven't done laundry in a week, I just hit the yes button, but they're reminding me to do my laundry. So, like, if you compare that to, like, if you do a one time cleaning for somebody and it was great, they got no complaints, like, what is there to complain about? You just clean their yard. Uh, I would just follow up with like, hey, like it was great working with you. Everything was a success. Your property is beautiful. We'd love to maintain it for you. Here's an annual plan. Are you interested? And just proactively send it to them. I guarantee you'll have people say, you know what, it's actually a good idea. I shouldn't just be a one-time thing. Maybe I should do this once every whatever your frequency is, and create some bundles for them.
So, where do you collect these ideas from? Do you just like think of these or do you get inspiration from other businesses?
Um, A little bit of both. Like, I'm always thinking of fun stuff. My husband's always thinking of fun stuff, but we're also like a sponge. Like, there are so many things on YouTube and so many people like you and like other like people that are out there on social media giving little nuggets. And if you learn even like from a book, like those are all the business books that I've read. And like not every book is great, but like I've learned one thing from every book that I've been able to implement. Like one book in there was like, you should have an end of day checklist for your field crew. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a good idea. Like to make sure that there's fuel in the trucks. And it's like, I just created an end of day checklist for our field crew and implement it. So if you just pay attention to people in your industry or in any home service industry, there's always something to learn. It doesn't even matter how big you get. You can be a $5 million company. I feel like you'll pick something up like, oh my gosh, we should implement that at our business. That's how we learn everything.
So, I really shouldn't be putting my husband on blast like this, but he's in the home service. So, this is like pain points with us. So I had called him one of these days and I was like, how's your day going? He was like, oh, it's terrible. Like, we get to the job, we drive really far out. I arrive there and she's like, I don't even need you guys today. Kick rocks. And then so he was just like like upset with her. And I said, well, did you call to confirm with her that or let her
Mhm,
know that you were on the way? And he was like, well, no. I said, well, you should be calling every appointment and letting them know, giving them say, hey, I'm on the way. And he
uh-huh,
was like, well, what? I'm like, is there anybody's job? Like, whose job is this? And he's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's the office's job. I'm like, well, if you're the crew leader, have a
mhm,
conversation with your boss and figure out whose job it is to confirm this job. And if you don't want this to happen again, you should take it upon yourself. Call them in the morning, confirm you have the correct address, right?
mhm.
And the best place to park, and then you won't run into these kind of issues. And he was like, oh, okay. It was like little light bulb moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
I've had contractors just show up at my house and not tell me they're gonna show up. I don't like it. Don't just show up at my house,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? If you give
It's
me
a
a
house.
window and you say you're gonna be here between, I don't know, 9 and 12, and then all of a sudden you just show up at, random time, like, maybe I decided to hop in the shower at that particular moment, and now you're beating on my door, and now I gotta figure this out.
Yeah. It's
So,
true. When people get things, the house is like a personal, it's not like cleaning a parking garage or a building. Like it's like when you're dealing with people's homes, they're like naturally emotional about it. Like it's, you have to just be different. You have to run your business different. You have to hire people that are different, that can communicate with your client. And it's just a different level.
It is because that's their safe space. So we're getting at like 46 minutes here. So I don't want to, I want to respect your time. So I'm going to wrap it up. But let's talk about the way to speak to your ideal customer, especially when it comes to an intimate home setting. Usually, what's the tone?
We find that you have to build trust. So like I require that if our sales reps are going to a home to do an in-person estimate, they can't wear their sunglasses when they're talking to the client. So I want the client to see their eyes. They have to be in Clearview branding. So they trust that they're with the company. We just got really cool Clearview sales cars, which I'm excited about because I think it's nice to show up in a wrapped car, but I know that's a stretch. Like that's a stretch objective. But it's this whole like trust factor, and we want them to learn things about the client. So, oh yeah, I hear a dog in the background. How many dogs do you have? I love dogs. You know what I mean? Like, and then keep circling back on that through the sales process. How's the dog feeling? I know that you were saying that he was getting his surgery on Tuesday. Like, and so always try and build trust, but we also really we the love language thing is a pretty big deal for us. Like I think that there were missed opportunities when we thought that you should only call because you might never reach a busy client by phone. So being able to integrate emails and text messages and being able to speak the language of all three types of clients, because it's all three are a different client. I think that that's gone a long way for us.
Can you explain the love languages a little bit with the three different touch points?
Yeah, it's kind of I believe that an elderly client will want anything to do with email, and they will not want a text message, and a lot of them might think it's even disrespectful, like they are entitled to a phone call and a nice conversation. And you have to respect that. It's not, they're not nuts for that. Their generation would prefer a phone call. My parents would prefer a phone call. Like that's just how it is. And then you move into another generation, it might be our generation, and it's like I want an email. I don't like getting too many text messages. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not going to answer your phone call. I don't really want to talk, but just send me my email confirmation and all the information, and I'll look at it and we're great. I'll see you then. And then there's like a generation that might be one bracket beneath us, and that is text messages. And it's like they're never going to check their email because they have 10,000 emails. It's all, spam and things that they should unsubscribe from. They're never going to answer their phone or check their voicemails. Their voice inbox is full. And they just want a quick text message. And it's like, hey, please respond yes or no if you'd like us to show up. And you just type in yes, and they'll be there the next day. So you have to cater to all three clients if you're in the service space.
Yeah, and I think this is something that I had a realization a couple weeks ago when I was talking with Eric Triplett, the pond digger.
Mhm.
We were talking about sales, and with poop scooping, it's 20 bucks. It's 20 bucks a week. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, or it's 50 bucks, whatever. But I think a lot of us don't think about the long term, like the lifetime value of a customer and how much that could be over 1 year, over 7 years. My dog's 10, over a 10, 12 year span. And so if we start looking at it like that, then we can take the time, or we should take the time to learn the love languages, learn a sales process, and actually put time and effort into it instead of, I mean, I've been lazy. I have been so lazy before because I'm embarrassed to admit it. I didn't have the respect. And so looking back to like the sales that Erica did prior, I'm just like, oh, we have to improve. We have to do better.
It's again, it's like what you were saying earlier, like there's so much, right? You need processes, you need to figure out how to get there, you need a CRM, you need this. As a pain point comes up, you just work on it, identify it, work on it, fix it, and just know that you just became this much better. And just like the lifetime value, you just keep getting this much better every week and every month and every year. You're going to be a successful business.
Woo! That was so good. We're gonna wrap it up on that. If any of our listeners or viewers want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I am at theprocessceo.com. I'm at the Process CEO on YouTube, Instagram, and hope to see you guys there. It's been fun chatting.
Oh, this has been so good. I truly appreciate you spending time with us.
Thanks, Erica.
All right, I'll talk to you soon, okay?
See ya.
Bye.